One of the weirdest and most unusual things in Pro Valorant has been happening in the Chinese league recently, with the current best Oper in the world in EDG's Kang Kang seemingly disappearing in recent matches off of the Op role, completely changing the dynamics of the best team in China and confusing VCT fans everywhere. So what's happening to Kang Kang, and how are Edward Gaming changing their game plan since falling out of Masters Madrid so early? Well, before we can answer these burning questions, can you real quick make sure you're subscribed, as it really helps the channel and keeps you up to date with all the Pro Valorant videos I'm posting all throughout this long season, so you don't want to miss out. So back during the 2022 Champions Tournament, the world was introduced to one of the most technically gifted players in Kang Kang, with him pulling off insane play after insane play, with him from the instant he stepped on stage, being able to out-op teams like Paper X and Team Liquid. And while his team was unable to perform, talk about him probably being the best Oper in the world started to swirl around him, leading to a breakout season in 2023, where EDG qualified for every major event, even though China still didn't have a league, with him truly earning the title as best after he dominated an Aspas and less-led Loud team during an elimination game in Masters Tokyo, with him picking up 103 op kills in only 15 maps. That's an overall of 6.9 kills a map all throughout the Masters against top teams, with him dropping 22 kills in a single map against Na'Vi. And in Champions, he continued to dominate on the op with 82 kills in 6 matches, with him picking up through these two major tournaments 132 first kills to 116 first deaths, one of the best ever throughout a whole Masters event. And with these stats, he led his team to back-to-back top 6 finishes to complete the season, with things for Kang Kang and EDG looking promising heading into the inaugural Chinese franchise season, as they looked just to have too much experience and star power for any team in their region to even come close to him. And in the kickoff tournament, things went as planned, as they won all 3 of their matches to both win the event and qualify to represent China yet again at Masters Madrid, where they hoped to finally break into the top 4. But one thing started to happen to this team and Kang Kang, as on maps like Bind, he had been switching away from the op and allowing Smoggy to take over. And while it led to victories both times in the kickoff, it started to show some plans Edward Gaming's wanted to try going forward. But either way, in Masters Madrid, Kang Kang would continue to be their Oper, as it's been working since the start of him joining this roster. But they were going to face the incredibly unpredictable Paper X team, which automatically put them as underdogs, even when Kang Kang is playing lights out. So after losing Sunset in convincing fashion, they decided to use this new comp, with Kang Kang moving off the opping role into KO, where he still played well, but Smoggy ended up being the difference maker, picking up 5 kills with the op, leading them to victory to force a map 3 that saw Kang Kang return to Raze, but not pick up the op at all on Split, as they upset Paper X with this whole new strategy away from utilizing the world's best Oper. And while they could have went all in on this role change in the other maps, they stuck with their prep. But unfortunately for them, they were facing off against Gen G, where they forced them to a map 3, but their game plan just didn't match up with these better teams, as Kang Kang and his team could never get it done, as they fell to Gen G, then to Loud in a complete blowout loss, seeing them only get 5 rounds in the entire match, to be eliminated in the 5th and 6th spot. But this loss was more than just the same early exit they were used to. This dismantling by Loud shocked the very core of this Chinese team, making them for the first time since they debuted on the international stage, question their strategy going forward, as no matter how good Kang Kang is, there seems to be no way for them to break past this limit. So they decided to look towards more options and comps for this team that might work, and the start of the split is the perfect time for them to do this. So in week 1, after slowly using the op less and less so far this year, with only 8 kills in Masters Madrid, with 5 of them coming from one map, he completely moved off the opping role, giving that completely away to Smoggy, who on Ascent played Jet and on Bind played Raze now. A huge identity change for the best team in China for the last 2 years. So did having the best Oper in the world relinquish the role help in their opener against JDG? Well, it was a lot closer than expected, because after Smoggy and Kang Kang dominated on their new roles, they weren't able to continue that on Bind, where Smoggy suffered greatly on Raze, while Kang Kang looked lost and way less efficient on KO, with them falling 9 to 13 to move to Decisive Map 3, where they kept their old comp on Split. And while switching back onto Entry after playing the first 2 maps as Initiator didn't work for Kang Kang, as he went 13 and 18, nobody and Smoggy were able to carry the team across the finish line to win the final round of regulation to survive JDG and start the split 1-0. So right away, it was obvious that the changes weren't working by not having Kang Kang on the op, as it just didn't look as explosive on Bind. And while Smoggy on Jet looked great against JDG, there are a few flaws in his game plan that could bite them in the future against matches against better teams later in the season. That wasn't the same way Kang Kang took on Jet on Ascent. Let's look at round 11 from Smoggy in this map, where with a huge eco and lead, even on the attack, Kang Kang would usually buy an op here, where he would peek these aggressive angles, but with Smoggy, they focused more on going on a basic attacking round, where Smoggy plays with the spike to prod toward A, but then decide to rotate. But without the fear of Kang Kang, Stu has been able to push up so far since he can get away if being pressured, as he's being protected by a souvenir market. Nothing comes of it though, as they rotate safely knowing they don't have control of mid. But this lack of control without a world-class Oper makes their attacks way more predictable and straightforward, as it not just forces their star player to hit hard shots, but an entire team to do it, which isn't too much stronger than the average pro Chinese player right now, which results in them being destroyed before they can even reach site. They ended this attacking half 7-5. While they had the lead and ultimately won the map, it was clear that this attacking side was not as explosive and dangerous as you would want from a team that wants to break into the top 4 in the world finally. So after this close game against a team they should have destroyed, they continued to tweak things in their match against one of the other lower teams in the region, in Tai Lu, where they moved Kang Kang back on to entry on Bind, leading to a victory to win the match in convincing fashion to go 2-0. So I want to compare rifle rounds from their match with Smoggy on Raze to Kang Kang to show why having him on entry is such a deadly threat to net them wins in critical rounds than with Smoggy. And it's more than just how good each of their aims are, as it's incredible on both ends. It really comes down to positioning and game sense to work as a deadly point on the defensive side of a map. We dive into round 20, where EDG have a real chance to pull the map back and win Bind. But even with enough money to invest into an op, they have Smoggy on just a rifle, as him and Haodong take showers fast, which could be a good idea, but leaves them no information on A, while on B they farm the orb and have Kang Kang playing back on site. Overall, throughout the beginning of the round, Edward Gaming only tries to get information about JDG by using their util, with them not really taking space, as even after getting a kill from a very poor push by JDG, they don't take advantage of it at all, as they allow them to reset and cut information, as even though they are in a 4v5, they still have so much time to come up with a real site hit. JDG as a whole just plays passively on both sites, as they wait for JDG to decide where to attack. And they aren't even prepared for it, as right when JDG hits A, they're already so far up on site that they take out Haodong and Nobody when he tries to execute a pinch on showers. These kills give them the player advantage and an easy plan, where they take out the rest of EDG as they try to push onto site, quickly turning a 4v5 into JDG saving 3 rifles, going into map point. This round really shows how passive they have started to become in rounds, where we are used to them taking aggressive angles and pushing the tempos on teams like JDG, who do not have the same firepower as them. And now let's look at how Kang Kang plays a similar round just a week later in round 17, where the game hangs in the balance with this rifle round, where EDG runs a similar plan where they go and try for orb on B and have their Raze, who is now Kang Kang, pushing showers with Smoggy on Brimstone. While he doesn't have an op, it's because of what they plan to do with this round, as they set up for a very aggressive flank together to allow his team on B. Both are great at slowing down any attack, especially through these 2 choke points. The only thing Tai Lu could do to really throw a wrench in their plans is take Teleporter, but without any information given by EDG, they just push forward into the Shredder. All the space gained by a confident and aggressive Kang Kang and Smoggy allows them to know what to do to win this important round, leading them to a 13-10 victory on a map they just lost a week ago with a completely different comp. With him picking up a +9 kill to death and a 281 ACS, it's clear he shines on this agent, revealing himself yet again as a great entry player, with always having the threat of pulling out the op, and that switching him from this role isn't the role swap they need to both win the Chinese League and to go further in these upcoming international tournaments that they're expected to make. So while it's important for them to continue to find what works for them, it's clear that Kang Kang is too valuable to be in a role that doesn't maximize his duel taking opportunities, which is where he thrives the most on this team. So I'd be surprised if this is a reoccurring change for this team after this performance, especially as they get toward harder and harder opponents regionally, as they'll be facing Titan, who has a superstar caliber entry in RB who could cause trouble, as well as matches against FPX and Trace, who both have the ability to sweep them if they play like they did against JDG. So now with this change seeming to be figured out, how do I think this team will do going forward throughout the rest of the split? Well, I do think they'll probably go undefeated throughout the rest of the regular season, maybe losing to Trace in a close match, as even when they're doing this weird role changes, they're still better than quite a few of these other Chinese teams. So I have them qualifying for Masters Shanghai, but I think they'll end up even worse than in their last few international events, as the talent everywhere is just getting better and better, and it doesn't seem like EDG knows what the real problem is for their team, as it's clearly not taking their best player off the most impactful role for them. It more seems that the team isn't built strong enough overall to really compete with the best of the best. Some of that issue being that they're in a noticeably weaker league than the rest of Tier 1 Valorant, and that the region as a whole has just been behind in terms of time with the game so far. So while in my preseason prediction video I memed EDG winning Masters Shanghai, so with how the team currently looks, and with this added confusion in what they really need to do to their game plan to improve, I believe they'll get bounced out immediately in Shanghai, disappointing their local fans in the process to finish in dead last. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you don't miss out a single video as the Pro Valorant season continues on.